So let's say that someone is dating someone that is operating in the Jezebel spirit. What does that look like?
Constant blaming you, finding something at fault, and they're never taking ownership for their side of it.
There it is.
It could be, again, causing fights for no reason.
I'm on a journey to discover, uncover, and recover love. Now, as a national playwright, I've penned dozens of shows about relationships. As a filmmaker, I've documented the most beautiful committal of lovers at weddings. And as a divorcee, I know firsthand the brevity of marriage and the pain of its loss. I'm Laterras Whitfield, and welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast.
Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. I'm your host, Laterras Whitfield. But let me tell you something. I am so excited to just have a conversation with today's guest. She's the co-owner of DEI Consulting and Training Solutions. She's the author of the amazing book, From Tools to Traits. I've been friends with her for the past 12 years, and gosh, she's just a wealth of wisdom and insight. Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey podcast, my homie, Nurisha Liggins.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Nurisha.
Yeah.
Now, so we had a conversation about a month ago. We were just playing catch up, trying to see what was going on in these Corona streets and trying to see how life was treating you and all that good stuff. And the conversation went pretty deep, and we got into a really, really dope conversation. And I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my audience to the wisdom that you have. You are a wealth of knowledge and intellect, especially, and I didn't know this. Like this was new to me. I got a chance to see a totally different facet of you. And listen, so everybody right now, do not click off of this. I want you to watch it all the way through its entirety. I know we suffer from an ADHD generation where we'll watch something for a couple of minutes and be like, oh, okay, well, I'll jump off. But this right here will impact your life forever. If there's anything that you need to listen to, it's this episode right here. Nurisha, we had a conversation about the spirit of Jezebel. Mm-hmm. What introduced you to the research of this spirit? Wow.
So I spent the past 12 years, maybe 10 years, working in ministry in different capacities, from worship pastor to executive director to being on boards of directors for church plants, developing curriculum. And one thing that I kept seeing over and over were these specific individuals that had the same type of characteristics and character traits that caused a lot of division within congregations, and they always had the same patterns. And so I started researching and just reading and reading a lot of books, not just the Bible, but a lot of books from people who've done some deep studies about the Jezebel spirit. And I kept seeing those same patterns show up all throughout my career working in ministry. So yeah, it became something that I was able to identify quickly and understand how to manage that.
Well, for the unchurched, try to break down, what does that really mean? What is the Jezebel spirit?
Okay, well, for the unchurched, so it's just a demonic spirit, but it has certain character traits that pull upon control and manipulation and deception. And you'll see a lot of lying. You'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff to control what's going on up front. And you'll see it outside of the church too. I would say it's in corporations. It's in anyone that has a vision. You'll always be attracting someone that has those particular character traits of that Jezebel spirit.
So when you talked about the Jezebel spirit being first introduced in the Bible, in what story?
In 1 Kings, and when that was with Elijah. And so Elijah and actually Jezebel's husband Ahab, they had this battle. Elijah and Jezebel worshipped Baal.
Yes.
And so they decided they were going to go after Elijah because Elijah was doing all these miracles, right? Yeah. And again, he was sent by God. Well, Jezebel opposes God and God's plan. One thing about the Jezebel spirit as it relates to the body of Christ is that her goal, that spirit's goal, not a she, because it can show up in male and female, but that spirit's goal is to destroy the work of the Lord, no matter what it is. It is the Antichrist spirit. So anything that is a part of God's plan, there is a spirit that opposes that work and opposes that plan. And so Elijah comes in, is sent to confront that spirit And what Jezebel does is, of course, she does what she does. She causes fear. She causes chaos. And as strong of a man of God and a prophet that Elijah was, it affected him. You know, there was a point in the story in 1 Kings 18, you know, the whole battle at Mount Carmel. He defeated Ahab, and God defeated Ahab using Elijah. And then at the end, he runs and he's afraid because Jezebel's threatening his life. So even with God using him, he was still affected by the fear and manipulation and the threats of that spirit in that person. So you being a person of God does not make you incapable of being affected by that spirit.
Right. So we hear that spirit spoke a lot about, well, we hear the reference when it's dealing with relationships and dealing with just love.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, oh, she had a Jezebel spirit. And most times, like you said, we hear it referred to as a woman, but that spirit shows up in our female and male counterparts. Mm-hmm. What does that look like in a relationship?
Destruction. It is really a plot to control, manipulate, and destroy. And then also, it is, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? It's codependent.
Yes.
It creates a codependency. So, you know, I need you. And I might even play the victim so that I will win your heart.
Yes.
And win your empathy and your sympathy so you won't get angry when I'm doing these things that are destructive.
So a lot of times people refer to that as narcissist.
Yes.
Yeah. So they'll say, hey, I've become entangled, since that's going to be the word of the year. So what's the difference between a narcissist and someone that is operating a Jezebel spirit?
Well, there's not much a difference other than a person that is dealing with the mental disability of, I almost say a mental disability, but it's a psychological issue.
Yes.
What happens is that spirit uses that as a way to control and a way to distribute, I guess, the destruction along through that disability or that issue, that person or that illness, right? So a narcissist is someone is very similar, and they can, and a lot of times you can find both, one dealing with both sides of that. But a narcissist is someone that is controlling the environment so that they can be the center of attention, right? And they're not only just the center of attention, but they want to be in control of everything.
Yes.
And I have seen it being real petty, just, for no reason. Like they would cause a stir over here and just say, hey, watch this. And then go tell someone something over here just to watch how that plays out. That is someone that is manipulating a situation, manipulating people's lives and and stories and narratives just for their own gratification.
Their own entertainment.
So narcissism, it really focuses on self-gratification. And usually most people who are narcissists are severely insecure. Yes, severe. And that's how they medicate themselves, is maintaining control over the environment and the people in that environment.
So let's say that someone is dating someone that is operating in a Jezebel spirit. What does that look like? Like, what tangible things could the person be able to identify and be like, hold on. And, we always say that, we talked about destruction and causing chaos in their life, but let's get a little deeper and more specific where someone can say, oh my God, I need to kind of figure this out because I've been feeling this. What may that look like?
It could be constant blaming you, finding something at fault, and they're never taking ownership for their side of it.
There it is.
It could be, again, causing fights for no reason. Again, wanting the attention, being the victim when they've really been the bully in a lot of the situations, and then just lying. I hate to say it, but being deceptive. And just wanting to maintain control of every narrative. Even if it's false, I'm going to control the narrative so that I always look good.
You said in our conversation, you said something that Jezebel did. What did Jezebel ask for? She asked for the head of...
No. Her husband, Ahab asked for, he was going after to buy a vineyard.
Right.
He was going to buy a vineyard.
Unpack that.
Okay, Naboth was a person that had a vineyard, and the Lord had given that to him and his family. Ahab goes to him and says, hey, I want this vineyard. I want to be able to plant a garden in your vineyard. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll sell, I'll pay you for whatever. And he was like, I can't get rid of this. This is something the Lord gave me. Mm-hmm. And he comes home. To his boo thing.
Yeah, Jezebel.
And he, he's upset and he's, just sad because it didn't work out. The business deal didn't work out. Jezebel says, okay, take a nap. I got this, so she takes control of the situation. And what she does while he's sleeping is she uses his name. She writes these fake letters and these fake government documents, uses his name, signs his name, uses his signature ring, which is back then they would have these rings where they would,
That's how they would sign the documents.
They would sign documents, emboss documents. She used that and declared that this property was going to be her husband's. And so again, did all of these manipulative things, these deceptive things, and ordered them to have the man killed, from what I remember, so that her husband could get this property.
So, in today's society, we would consider that I got a ride or die chick.
You know what? That is true. That is some ride or die right there. But at the expense of what?
Yes.
Who is that person? What is the character of that person?
Because if they'll do that to somebody else, they'll do it to you.
It's just all it takes is one argument. Yes. All it takes is for you not to give that person what they want. All right.
And they're going to show up and show out.
Exactly. They're showing you what's inside of them.
They're showing you their character. Oftentimes we ignore the blatant display of character.
Yeah.
And we go, well, that's just what he or she did with them. Mm-hmm. You said something profound. I said, oftentimes we get into relationships with people or dealings with people, and people that are empaths, they tend to want to cover somebody in their weakness. Mm-hmm. And you said there's a difference between weakness and what? Wickedness. A difference between what?
Weakness and wickedness.
What's the difference? This is so dope. I love it.
So weakness, that's an area where we're struggling with something. There are, in my opinion, I've not seen this before. This is just how I understand sin to work out. There's 3 phases to it. There's struggle, there's submission, and then there's celebration. And so the struggle part is like, I know this is wrong, but my goodness, I'm struggling with this, right? And then we get into the submission to it. I surrender to it. I'm submitting to it. This is kind of okay, this is who I am now. But then when we start to celebrate it, then we start boasting about that thing, boasting about that thing. So the struggle part is the weakness, This is an area that I'm struggling in, and I'm trying to get better. I recognize that I'm deficient in this area. I need to work on myself. And people want to help a person that's weak. But when you've gotten into the celebration part, now that's wickedness, because it is no holds bar now. This is no longer something you are reckoning with. This is who you are. You've made this a part of your lifestyle. You made this sin a part of your character traits. And so when you're in a relationship with someone and they've moved the dial from weakness to wickedness, that is a sign that you are never, ever, ever going to recover that person, because at this point, you can't even help them. They have to get right with God. They have to come to themselves and recognize that I have fallen away severely from where I'm supposed to be. That's not something you can lead someone into. That has to be something that the Holy Spirit leads a person into. So weakness is fine because we're growing together. At least we can identify it. But at wickedness, it's a part of who you are.
Well, listen, this begs an even deeper question. Is there redemption for Jezebel?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, there was redemption for Ahab in this story.
Let's talk about it.
So Ahab actually recognized that Elijah was worshiping the one true God.
Right.
And the curse that had fallen upon Ahab because of his wickedness, that was removed off of him when he submitted to God. So yes, absolutely. There's
But what
always
about Jezebel though?
Jezebel was rebellious in that.
Yeah.
She maintained her position. She maintained her wickedness.
Yeah.
And she would not backtrack from that. So, what the Lord said was going to happen to her, happened to her.
So that's what I'm saying. So when I say redemption, because it's interesting because the Jezebel spirit is so related to narcissists, and it's sad because therapists say that a narcissist cannot change. They can change certain characteristics about themselves, but you can try to teach them, hey, it may not be nice to treat somebody like this. You may want to choose differently, but who they are is who they are.
Yeah. I can understand why people would say that. I've worked for a lot of narcissists, and it is something that it's hard to see them coming out of, but they
have to first see that there's a problem.
You have, and that's the
ain't nothing wrong with me. Y'all
they're always the victim.
Yeah, they're like y'all the problem.
They're always the victim, and so even when they do something, they don't see they're wrong. They only see the situation that caused them to have to do what they did.
You made me do
that. Yes, right.
Boy, I'll tell you, okay. I'm trying not to be triggered here.
Don't be triggered.
Come on, somebody. Yeah, when you deal with that type of personality, like you made me do. I made you do that.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the disorder. The disorder is the inability to see themselves. It's a lack of self-awareness.
Makes sense, but and I have no room and time for that type of spirit.
And we shouldn't.
I'm just not built for that. God didn't call me for that ministry. Stay with whole people that understand who they are and can apologize and admit their faults and mistakes. Because I'll be the first. I try to race you to an apology.
Yeah.
And so I always say, listen, I don't like any discord between us. I want to get back to happy. Yeah. And that's my rule. I always say, let's get back to happy. Let's figure out what it is. Let's have those tough conversations, and let's get back to happy.
Yeah.
Pursuit of happiness. That's what I look at.
That's good.
So, Nurisha.
Yes.
You're an absolutely dope woman.
Thank you.
Why are you single?
Oh, I hate that question.
I know it, and that's the wrong approach to say is why are you single? Like, how do you answer that? Why am I single?
I just told some friends when I did an interview yesterday. I said, "Don't ask me why I'm single."
I did that. I did that as a problem because I did it on purpose because that's the stupidest thing that people say.
It is. I don't have an answer to that.
All right, so let me rephrase it.
Okay.
Find a more intelligent way to say that. You're a dope woman.
Thank you.
Highly intelligent, absolutely beautiful. At this place in your life right now, you have chosen to be single until God brings you the right person? Have you met people along the way? What is it that you desire in marriage? Or do you even want to be married?
Wow. This is not what we talked about.
Oh, we did? Oh, this is good then. Good. This is good. Let's talk.
Okay. I do desire to be married. I have dated along the way. The right person just has not manifested.
The right person hasn't manifested.
Right.
All right. We'll just leave that at that.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to unpack that.
Don't.
Okay. Because listen, I always say to whom much is given, much is required. And so I think that when you find women that are like I call it whole. When I see you, I see a whole woman. And so I always wonder, like, is as whole as you are, do you still feel the void of the absence of a love relationship?
Absolutely, because when God made Adam, he was whole, and when God made Eve, she was whole, that they still needed one another. And so I'm whole as an individual woman, but that does not mean that there isn't partnership that can be whole too.
There it is. Ooh, that was good. Because see, I hear a lot of women just like they get to this level of success and they reach this stuff and they be like, I don't need no man. I'm good.
No, that's anti-Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, even Jesus had a bride. Has a bride.
Even Jesus had a bride.
Yes,
boy.
Jesus has a bride.
The church.
We were designed for partnership, and I'm not of that independent woman theory. I think that demasculates men in a lot of ways. I believe that we were designed for relationship, and women who say that come from a place of hurt, and we've had to do things. I've had to do things being a single mom that, if I'd allowed bitterness to set in, I would say, well, yeah, I don't need a man, but that's not the way that God created me.
So how'd you balance that? How'd you balance the life of not growing bitter towards the male species and saying, you know, I still desire that. I see something. What do you see? What do you see that a man, a husband provides that you can't do on your own?
A lot. I'm a kite. You know, I might be thinking about this over here, and then I want to do this over here. So for me personally, and this is not everybody's story, but right. I'm the person that needs someone at the end of the string holding it down, because I have a lot of ideas, I have a lot of dreams that I want to chase. So that balance would be the perfect scenario for a partnership for me.
So you wrote the book from tools to traits. Let me get close up on this. So you wrote the book From Tools to Traits.
Yeah.
What is this book about?
So I think I have always thought a lot about death for some reason. It sounds real
morbid.
I know it does, but I always think about, you know, what am I going to leave behind? That from that perspective, who am I going to leave behind? Not just what, but who am I going to leave behind, and what will I leave them? And so this book was a development of all of the character traits that I wanted to be known for after I leave. And so I talk about building confidence, understanding my influence and how powerful that is, being poised, understanding what my superpowers are and when to execute those superpowers. I talk about healthy thoughts, understanding the patterns of automatic brain thinking versus deliberate brain thinking.
Yeah.
And leaving intentional encounters, making sure that every encounter that you have with someone has an intention and a purpose.
You know what, that speaks to me, because I look back at my life, and when I was touring the country and all that, and I was like, what if, I wish I knew then what I know now, where I could make each encounter that I had intentional. But in that time, I felt like, you know, when I was meeting a lot of these different celebrities, I didn't want to be an opportunist. And so I was like, well, yeah, Chris Tucker's at my show. So, I mean, I don't want to be the dude to be like, hey, let's keep in contact. Hey, maybe you can be in my next show and all this. And I kept saying, this is just, so I just didn't have intentional encounters. I meet people, hey, how you doing? They probably thought I was stuck up, but I just, hey, what's going on? And when I look back at that, I asked God, I want you to teach me to be present in every moment.
That's what it
because
is.
I haven't, I'll just be like, and you're dealing with the stress of touring, the stress of just life, and just stuff just passing me by. And that resonated with me about what you just said, to have intentional encounters with people.
Yeah, and it's not. I feel the same way. I've been in environments where there've been celebrities all my life, basically, and you don't ever want to, feel like you're being an opportunist or and that's just the opposite of who we are. Yeah. But when I think about an intentional encounter, it's being aware of the presence, the light that I bring, the fragrance that I want to leave the room when I leave.
Fragrance I want to. That right there, preach.
You ever been to a place and you hear somebody's got on some strong perfume and then they leave and then their perfume is still there? To me, that's legacy.
Yes.
And being able to leave legacy in the room is important. That's an intentional encounter.
From tools to traits, tools for becoming a better you. Yeah. So the takeaway, when people read this book, what is it that you want them to take away from this?
Wholeness. I want them to be able to see themselves as a whole person and feel proud of the person that they are and that they're going to leave behind.
So in this book, our podcast is about keeping it lit, where we live it intentionally and transparently. Yeah. In this book, where people get an inside look on who you are and what developed you in becoming who you are today?
Yes. I'm a very private person, but I share some very intimate stories, some stories where I have actually done some things wrong. And
you've done stuff wrong, Nurisha?
Believe it or not, goodness. Yes. There are stories where I have that I actually share that I actually was biased, about a situation, and I had to really evaluate my thinking on something and how the Lord corrected my thinking and said, hey, you've been a victim of bias. Why would you feel this way? Why would you treat this person that way? So I do share some intimate stories about my own hurt, some areas where I'm still growing. I'm still growing in a lot of areas. So this is a living book for me. I'm still living this thing out.
What made you write it?
It's an ode to myself. It's a reminder for myself. It's a gift to myself of being able to celebrate how far I've come, but also knowing that there's some places I need to develop.
How have people been responding to it?
Well, it just came out like 2 days ago. I've had a couple of people respond.
Read it before?
Yeah. Well, no,
You
actually,
have nobody read it before you release it?
just my editor.
Really?
Yeah, just my editor.
Ooh, so
Yeah.
this is sensitive,
It's-
huh?
yeah.
When you put your life from one writer to another, when you put your life out there for other people to critique and judge, and it's like letting your baby go.
It is definitely, because it's a piece of me.
It is.
And these are some intimate stories that nobody really even knows about. There's things that only God knows about that I shared in this book, and I only shared it because I felt like other people could relate.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Where can they get it?
Amazon.
Oh, she all on Amazon and
Yes.
stuff. She wasn't about to say, meet me in the corner of Costco parking lot. I got something in the trunk. I want to buy this copy. So can I buy this copy?
You can buy that copy.
Okay.
I'll gift you that copy.
I want to buy it because I like sowing seeds in the writers. Like I gotta buy it.
Well, thank
So I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna pay double for it. So listen. So the reality is this: what can people do to steer away from that Jezebel spirit?
When you say steer away, do you mean in themselves or with other people?
With other people. So they meet somebody and it's somebody that they really like, because one thing that we really don't talk a lot about is the Jezebel spirit is extremely charming.
Yes.
It's extremely
Yeah.
romantic. It's extremely everything that you could possibly desire in that opposite, in the opposite sex, especially if it's in a love relationship. What's the aha moment to say, oh my God, my flesh is telling me this, because it's going to be 100% fleshly. It's fleshly. You want this person and you go, I can't. What should they do?
Pay attention to the cues where they're asking you without asking you. What I mean is, if they're playing the victim, playing the person that needs your help, and I'm not saying that every person that
Needs your help is a Jezebel spirit.
a Jezebel spirit, but one of the first tactics is to get you to feel sorry for them, so that you now have an anchor into their life.
There it is.
So that's always
That's
one
good.
of the first things.
That is the first thing. That is the when I tell okay. Hey man. What's your name again? Nurisha Liggins. God bless you. Now listen, Nurisha, I really enjoyed you being on the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Hopefully the listeners take something away from this, apply it to their life, and grow. Make sure you get the book From Tools to Traits. This is your first book, right?
It's my second book.
Second book. What was the first one?
The first book was a devotional.
Devotional. See, she all spiritual and stuff. She's doing devotionals and stuff. Look at the Lord. So Nurisha, I always ask people this. Do you have a lot of guys that try to slide in your DMs and try to holler?
I wouldn't say a lot.
A lot.
No.
There's a couple of them.
Few. It's occasional.
What about in person? Do you prefer personal encounters? They meet you? I know we didn't talk about this, but this is just funny. When people meet you personally, are you old school? Would you rather people meet you face to face, out and about, or through social media?
I don't know that I have a preference.
You don't?
I don't know that I have a preference.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't happen as often as you would probably think. So
I don't know what's wrong with guys. Anyway, people just crazy. We're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna do some type of hookup event, a dating after Corona cools down. Would you come to the dating event?
probably not.
So she said she'll come. So make sure when she comes. Why would you come?
That's just not my thing.
Okay, I'm gonna try to find a way for you to come. Nurisha, it's been an honor having you on the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you for being transparent and keeping it lit. God bless you. Man, let me tell you something. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Nurisha. I love when I'm able to just sit down and talk to people about spiritual truths and to give my listeners a different perspective on things in the spirit realm. But here's my favorite part of the episode is when I get a chance to manifest my future wifey. Dear future wifey, let's give a round of applause for the last woman who broke my heart. You see, if Satan prevailed, that experience would have caused me to grow bitter towards love like it often does in men. However, God's sovereignty thwarted the enemy's agenda, and through that horrible experience, it deepened my capacity to love. It revealed to me that my heart could pump past the threshold of heartbreak and make spiritual deposits into our love bank even before you are named the beneficiary. Allow the tears I shed throughout my past pain to serve as a river that ushers you into my life. This is my confession. I become a repellent to toxic behavior, Jezebel spirits, and narcissistic tendencies, so please check that at the door before entering my life. Cleanse yourself from all previous encounters with those foul spirits and come to me whole. I'll continue doing the work for total restoration to be free from emotional triggers. I'm committed to the process before the promise. Your future hubby.
Thank you for listening to the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Remember, be lit, live intentionally and transparently, and don't stop loving. Make sure to subscribe to our Dear Future Wifey YouTube channel. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We welcome your support. Simply share our podcast with your friends and family.